Well, it is Cincinnati week, which most would assume is rivalry week, but we have a lot to discuss about the UCF program as a whole. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I'm your host, Sean Green. Before we get started, a quick word from our sponsor, Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. Bet Online has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during the games. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our $200,000 mega contest and pick 5 games against the spread every week for your chance at weekly prizes and a share of $200K. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on the action. Bet Online, the game starts here. We're back. Before we get started, we're recording this on Tuesday night. I don't know if everybody knew, but there's a hurricane coming. And it's pretty scary. Not just for people in the Orlando area, but for people on Nick's end of the woods in Tampa and everybody on the coastline. And this is a big one. So we don't know what's going to happen. It's a wait and see. Obviously, this is getting posted. I don't know if I'm going to post this tomorrow, Wednesday, just to get it out early for people to kind of take their mind off the hurricane, or Thursday. I don't know yet. But, I'm thinking about everybody, praying for everybody, and hoping and praying that this is not as bad as they're saying, but it definitely looks that way. But Nick, I know you're down there. Luckily, you're more inland in the Tampa area, but I mean, it's a scary situation, and Tampa is just getting hit pretty hard these last couple years, but specifically these last couple weeks.
Yeah, it's a surreal sort of situation that we're dealing with, and we've been very lucky that for whatever reason, these hurricanes usually steer clear of hitting Tampa Bay directly. It just hasn't happened in like over 100 years or whatever it is. So, but obviously that always means that someone else is getting hit. So you wish that we didn't have to deal with it, but we know that that's what comes with living in Florida. Like you said, I'm inland enough that I think most of the things that I'm going to be personally dealing with is like wind and stuff of that nature. But obviously everybody on the coast, Tampa and Pinellas County in particular is it's a ghost town right now, and it should be. There's no reason to stay there at all. I think everybody is clear on that. So obviously we're pre-recording, so we really don't know yet what's going to happen, but just hope everybody stays safe out there, and we'll get through this together.
Yeah, 100%. So again, we hope everybody's okay. We hope that this podcast can kind of take your mind off of the outside world. That's why we do this. We've done this every year, and there's always been a hurricane, and we've always had to release a pod before a hurricane. And, we hope that this can take your mind off of it. But I wish it could be more joyous. I wish this podcast could be a little bit more cheery. But it's not. We left Gainesville. Nick, I didn't go to bed till 5. Posted the pod. Don't want to get into it, but went to the ER the next morning. Was in the ER on Sunday. I'm okay. I'm good. Went to the Gus Presser the next day, so everything is fine. But it was a long weekend, and me and you text, and we talk about the pods and when we're going to record. And you made it very clear, and I was going to bring it up to you, but you kind of started the conversation that you felt there needed to be a greater overall discussion on the UCF program as a whole. Now, before we get to that, I want to make it clear to Cincinnati fans maybe tuning in, or UCF fans that don't want to hear about the doom and gloom and want to focus on Cincinnati, time codes are down below. So if you want to just skip to the Cincinnati preview and not hear what we have to say on the program right now, you can do that. But a lot of people are talking. There's a lot of talking heads, Nick. And listen, I think we have a little bit, I don't want to say pull, but we do a UCF podcast. We cover the team. I think we have a good understanding of where we feel the program is at now. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion, but I kind of wanted to give you the floor just to open up our little UCF town hall, if you will, about a rough couple of weeks for this team.
Yeah, I think it's needed. It's not to lessen the importance of the Cincinnati game, because as we've been saying, in the grand scheme of things, the Cincinnati game is more important than the Florida game as it relates to your conference and whatever goals are still in front of you, right? But I just feel like I keep going back, I keep asking myself, what's the direction of the program? Are they trending up? Are they trending down? Are they treading water? And I sort of feel like they're in that middle ground right now where they are kind of treading water because they have momentum off the field. Whether or not that continues to stay that way, we're going to find out as the season unfolds. But clearly the product that they put on the field, and I basically excuse the first 2 games. With all respect to those opponents, I excuse those first 2 games. They've played 3 power opponents now in TCU, Colorado, and Florida. And that's 12 quarters of football. And that's 180 minutes of football. I probably could find 2 quarters out of those 12 where I could say UCF was the better team defensively. And in particular in that Florida game, it was never close. Like, they were non-competitive in that game. And we've said it, 24-13, you're fortunate to get out of there with a 24-13 defeat. I mean, that looks a lot better than what that game really was. So I guess where I'm sort of at with this is UCF goes 6-6 last year in the Big 12. We all say, you know what? That's a positive year. Of the 4 teams that came in, you were the best one. And, it was all new to you. You got a signature victory against an Oklahoma State. Now it's like, okay, what are they going to do in year 2? Seems like you could be even better. And Gus Malzahn, in response to that 6-6 season, used words like unacceptable, right? And we talked all off season about how Gus had a different demeanor to him. And, they were really going for it, right? To make some noise. And this is the product that we've gotten so far in 3 games, which is well below not just, I think, his standards and the team's standards. I think it's even below what we thought. So I think there's a lot of unrest right now with UCF fans. I think that's very clear. If you're active on Twitter and you just type in the words or the letters UCF rather, you can go down a rabbit hole. And I think there's been some reasonable takes. I think there's been maybe some slight overreaction, but I get it because, again, this is college football. People are passionate about this stuff, and nobody has patience. Nobody has patience ever. Like, we've talked about this. But in response to that 6-6 season, Gus Malzahn decided that he was going to, and he already did this halfway through last year, took the play calling duties away from Darren Henshaw. He demoted Addison Williams. He brought in Ted Roof. Tim Harris comes back into the program as well. Gus seems to get more hands-on with everything associated with this football team, especially on offense. He goes into the portal, brings in not 1 but 2 quarterbacks who are both making pretty good chunk of money, especially the starter, KJ Jefferson. You had one of the best running backs in college football returning in RJ Harvey. You had Kobe Hudson returning. You had, for the most part, a veteran offensive line. You have 2 stalwarts on the defensive line right in the middle. And you brought a load of transfers in that you thought were going to be impactful to your defense. And this is the product that we're getting. And so I asked myself, are they doing anything better than they did last year? And to me, the answer is a resounding no. The offense has taken a step back, or 2, honestly. The defense looks worse than it was last year. And the coaching on this football team and some of the decisions that have been made during in-game situations I'm talking about seem to have gotten worse as well. Everything as it relates to the on-field product is starting to deteriorate before our eyes. And I hate to compare it to other programs that are sort of around you, but you look at Cincinnati, they're a great one to bring up. Cincinnati in year 2 in the Big 12, there's no question that they have gotten better. There's no question. Their only loss is a 3-point loss to Texas Tech where they put up 41 points. And Texas Tech looks like they might be, a player in the conference right now.
Did they lose to Pitt? Or
I think the only loss they had was to Pitt, and Pitt's 5-0 and ranked.
Pitt and Texas Tech.
Yeah, they have 2 losses. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
But I think both those teams are showing that they're pretty good.
Yep.
But they've taken strides as a program this year. You look at BYU. BYU was bottom of the conference last year. And all of a sudden, BYU is, as we sit here today, the number 14 team ranked in the conference. with a signature win over a top 3 team in the conference, we all believe, in Kansas State. Even if you look at other conferences and how teams have gone over there, like the ACC, for example, SMU doesn't look like they're having much trouble adapting to ACC life at the moment. So, like, there's some other examples of some programs who have come in and they're either getting better in year 2 or they're coming straight into the conference year 1 and looking really good. And UCF is going in the wrong direction in that standpoint. And so my thing is, it's like, I know there's still 7 games left in the season, right? The season's not, I mean, I think your goals in terms of you wanted to get to the conference championship, that's behind you. I think that's clear. I don't know if this is going to continue to implode or not, but you look at the schedule ahead and it's hard to like forecast where these wins are going to come from because this back half of your schedule is pretty packed at the moment. And do you have much faith this is going to get better is the big question right now that I sort of have. And how much confidence do you believe you have in this coaching staff to sort of figure it out?
Very well put. I talked a little about it on the post-game pod. I think there's a lot of unrest with UCF fans, and I'm going to try in this to be as level-headed as possible because I think I said it, I'm always the one that kind of sticks up for Gus and looks at the bigger picture and says, like, okay, you lose a game you shouldn't have lost. Y'all need to calm down. It shouldn't be fire Gus because you need to look at the bigger picture. And last year was a success. And I think UCF fans want to quickly throw that under the rug and say, oh, that's an awful season. It's like, no, that was a good season for your first season in the Big 12. The issue is you've come into this year, you put out all the propaganda. You made all the changes. You put out all the propaganda about how much better you're going to be and how it's unacceptable, like you mentioned, Nick, and how we're fighting for a conference title and we're in win now. And you put all that out there and you went and got all these transfers to come in and play key roles. And then listen, I think it's funny. UCF's 3-2, but you mentioned, like we said, and we bring this up a lot when we're just like talking. UCF has lost 10 out of the last 12 quarters that they've played football. 10 out of the last 12, they've lost. So the first 2 weeks, you throw them out. It doesn't matter. I don't think the season's over, folks. I'm going to be honest. I don't. Does it look really gloom right now? Yeah. The way this team is playing is just straight up bad. Like, made the wrong hire at DC, I believe. Though I think there, again, are some bright spots on the defense that you can look at and say, okay, they make necessary adjustments and they play better in certain areas. They make certain stops where if the offense just executes, and that's the thing, and that's where that's the overall theme I want to kind of give UCF fans hope, is in my opinion, and I think Nick's going to agree with me, because I know he is, the KJ Jefferson experience needs to be, I don't know what that is, needs to be over. The KJ Jefferson experience needs to be over. I think KJ has shown some good things, but, if you just watch, everybody talks bad about John Rice and Gus just hasn't handled quarterbacks good, and that's, all valid. If you just watch the offense with John Rice last year, and even in points of the year before, the offense is just a lot quicker. The offense moves a lot faster. It's a lot more poignant with how they're running. They know what their identity is. It's an RPO game. They want to run the football, but they also want to get the ball to their playmakers. This year, it just feels like if they can't run the ball, there is no confidence that KJ is going to be able to throw. And maybe that's on the coaching staff and how they're calling the game. Maybe it's on KJ. I think a lot of people can take blame for it. I think it's a part of all the offense. Because to be honest, Nick, we can blame a lot on the defense. The defense has not been good. But to your point, you made it after the Florida game, the defense made enough stops where if your offense was just average, you probably win that football game.
Yeah, you're at least in it, for sure. And even in the Colorado game, like, your defense obviously did not play well in that football game. I think let's get to that out of the way. But your offense, had 4 turnovers and couldn't execute in the red zone, and we saw those issues sort of show up again against Florida. But yeah, I mean, I sort of, again, I hate to go back to the first game, because I know those games really just, they are what they are. But there were warning signs flashing right at us after New Hampshire with KJ Jefferson. And it's the things he's doing, the mistakes he's making, the receivers that are getting open that he's not seeing, that is alarming for a fifth-year quarterback who played in the SEC, the best conference in college football. And it's like I'm struggling to figure out how in the world he threw for 2,600 yards back-to-back seasons with a really high completion percentage and hardly turning over the football and stuff like that. And then here in a UCF uniform, we are getting what we're getting. It just hasn't worked out for whatever reason. And the word I continue to tell you is slow. He looks very slow in his decision-making. He looks very slow when he moves. The offensive line, I mean, let's be honest, has not played well in front of him, really, in the last couple weeks. But the difference is, I think UCF had quarterbacks last year between John Rice Plumlee when he was healthy, and even Timmy McClain, to be honest with you, that even when there was pressure, those guys were really quick and they were really fast and they were able to extend plays and they were able to get out. And if they had to take off with their feet, they could do it. And KJ Jefferson just seems very incapable. When he gets pressure, and I saw this a lot in the Florida game, it's rather than trying to make a play outside of the pocket, he just sort of turtles up into a shell and just goes down. It's just bad quarterback play. And I think another thing that's really hurting them is I think this offense runs a lot through the RPO, the run pass options. And if you go back and look at last year in 2022 with John Rice Plumlee, there's so many great examples of those RPO plays, and they run those little quick slants a lot of times to, Javon Baker, and a lot of times to Kobe Hudson, in fact, or those little short curls and stuff like that. And John Rice, it was wasn't wasting any time. The ball was coming out quick, and they were moving chains, and they were continuing to pick up first downs and moving the ball at a pretty high rate last year. Remember, UCF did not have a problem moving the football. It was just sometimes they'd get to the red zone and they would get bogged down a little bit, which is still happening now. But this year, the whole entire operation is just entirely too slow. And now that teams sort of have the book out on what UCF is and what they want to do, and that's run the football, it's incumbent on this quarterback and this passing game and this coaching staff to figure out another way to win games. And they're just having a hard time right now doing it, because I just think your quarterback is just right now showing that he's incapable of doing it. And that's a crazy thing to say again for a quarterback who's in his 5th year that did this pretty well at an SEC school.
Listen, we knew coming in, and I think a lot of coaches around the country are seeing it. There's a reason some of these guys are in the portal. There's always a reason. If they were as good as they were, and not taking anything away from the accomplishments that they made at the previous schools, if they were as good as they were, they'd probably find a way to keep these guys. Now, you have some instances where the quarterbacks go up a level, right? Like DJU. Now, he started at Clemson, but then he goes to Oregon State, and then he goes up a level to FSU, and you think, okay, he's gonna perform just like he did at Oregon State, and that just didn't happen. And you have KJ, who was at SEC and then came down to UCF, and you just expect, oh, well, he had a rough year last year, but he lost his offensive coordinator. And again, this is not all on KJ. And I think a lot of people listen, I supported KJ the first 4 weeks. I said I liked certain things I saw. I think some things needed to be cleaned up. After that Florida game, the Colorado and Florida game combined, he doesn't look the same. And I don't know if it's too much coaching and he's trying to remember too much things. I've heard a lot of different things from people where it doesn't give me great confidence in having him move forward. Now, with that being said, right, I think we're looking at this team right now. The quarterback is the most important part of your team. Call like it is. I think Gus won't come out. Gus is not going to come out and say, I don't have trust in KJ Jefferson. He's not. Gus is not going to come out and say, I don't have trust in KJ to throw a quick wide receiver screen. I don't have trust in KJ to throw the ball on 1st and 10. We need to run the football to be able to win. Like, because even when they're saying, hey, Gus, teams are loading the box, he's like, well, we need to figure out a way to run the football on it. So there is no confidence in KJ Jefferson throwing the ball. When he gets asked about, oh, Gus, there's 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter and you're running quick jet sweeps, and he just says, he had no answer for it because he knows he's not confident in KJ throwing the ball. So I think very quickly, Nick, and I've told you this, I think if a quarterback change is made, granted, your backup can suck too. So it really...
Yeah, but the difference is, Sean, I would rather take my lumps and go through my growing pains with that backup. And even if it's EJ Colson or Dylan Risk, I'd rather take my lumps with those guys in the name of them getting reps and getting experience inside this offense, because I know, or at least I have an idea, hopefully, because you never know with the portal, that these guys are going to be here next year for me. And I've got to figure out who is going to be the quarterback of my team for the long term, because KJ Jefferson is not leading you anywhere. He's leading you straight to mediocrity at best right now. And I don't think that quarterback change is happening this week. I think if they lose this game against Cincinnati, then I think you're probably going to see that conversation maybe become a little bit more real for Gus Malzahn, and we'll see how this game goes. Maybe it's more the same like it was against Florida, and then he throws in Ja'Carri Brown at some point. We don't know. But that's my gut right now, is telling me that this game is that important as it relates to UCF season first, but especially at the quarterback position, how they're going to play that out the rest of the season after that.
No, don't get it twisted. This is the biggest must-win of a must-win game that you can really possibly think. Not just because of, it's a Big 12 game, it's your rival. No. This could be any other team in the Big 12. Look at the next couple of weeks for UCF. I mean, talk about, if you don't win this game, you're looking at another 5-game losing streak in back-to-back years and a potential 6-game losing streak. Like, that's what you're facing. You have Cincinnati this weekend. You have at Iowa State the next weekend. You have BYU and Arizona right after that. Like, you're looking at a potential 6-game skid. And I'm not trying to be gloom and doom. I honestly do believe, Nick, it doesn't take... We all have eyes, right? Like, we all have eyes. I have eyes, and I supported John Rice last year, and I said, I think the way that he plays, we need him. People didn't agree with me. I have eyes just like you do. We're watching KJ Jefferson, and we're like, this is not the quarterback for the UCF offense. Maybe he's the quarterback for some other offense in college football. Unfortunately, the way and again, this is why, for those that are coming at Gus, and I get it, he's the one that wanted KJ. There was a lot of other options in the portal that probably wanted to come here. Malachi Singleton at Arkansas. I know he wanted to come here. Well, Gus said, nope, we're taking in KJ Jefferson. You let Tommy Castellanos go to Boston College. You say, we don't want him. You let Mikey Keene leave, which that doesn't look like a bad option now, or a bad idea now, given he kind of is now tanking at Fresno State. But the point is there. You brought in KJ. That's on Gus Malzahn. But guess what? Every single UCF fan was talking. This is why you can't just put it on Gus, because all you UCF fans, and again, me and Nick were saying the same thing. KJ Jefferson, closest thing Gus has had to Cam Newton. If he can make KJ kind of even half that, UCF's going to have a big season. The ceiling is 10 wins. Like, Gus was thinking the same thing. Now, what is not acceptable is leaving a quarterback in just because maybe you're paying him a lot of money and don't want the donors to get upset. I don't think that's what Gus is doing. I think Gus, he knows the minute he pulls KJ, you can't go back. The minute you pull a quarterback, you can't just go back to that quarterback. It's when you pull him, he's done. I personally think, I know you don't believe it, I personally think, like I said, we all have eyes. We see how bad it is. Gus, almost every single question in the press conference was getting KJ Jefferson questions. Gus is not an idiot. He knows it's bad. I do not think, if he plays like he did against Florida in the first half of the Cincinnati game, I don't care what the score is. If it's close, if it's a blowout, he's pulling KJ at halftime. I think he gets a half of football to show something. And if he doesn't, Jakari Brown is coming in. I wholeheartedly believe that because it's been that bad. And I think Gus knows the unrest among the fan base is getting high. And he needs to give the fans something to feel okay about. And right now you've had fans that have been supporting this team for the last, for the season, but specifically the last 2 weeks. Like if you go watch the UCF, I don't know if you've seen it, Nick, the clip where the kickoff at Florida, where the entire, stadium said UCF Knights. It's crazy. I didn't even understand how loud it was. Terry Mahaj was on the sideline pumping his fist because it's the fan base is there. Gus Malzahn knows that. And if it's bad in the first half against Cincinnati in a must-win game, because if you don't win this game and UCF plays as bad as they've played, I don't see how he leaves KJ in. Because if you leave KJ in, you're making the same mistake that maybe Norvell's making was making at FSU.
And that's a great example, and I was going to actually bring that one up, is Florida State went to Brock Glenn this week against Clemson. They still lost the game, okay? But Brock Glenn was a major improvement over DJU, right? He seemed to spark things a little bit on that offense, right? Obviously, that's a completely different situation than what UCF has, but I think the point stands. And also, you got 80 or so odd players that are on that sideline. They have eyes too. They can see it. And there's got to be a lot of frustration right now, specifically with the skill positions on that offense. You think Kobe Hudson is having a fun time playing right now? Think he's having a good time out there?
No.
This guy's got NFL draft aspirations. He was getting a lot of hype going into that Colorado game. And now 2 weeks later, guess what? That hype's now gone. He's not getting the football. It's not his fault, but you need somebody to get it to you. And that's not happening. You think RJ Harvey's having the most fun right now? And RJ Harvey is showing more character and more heart than a lot of guys on this football team. He's continuing to play hard and run hard and do what he can. But I'm sure this isn't fun for him either, just running straight into the line every single time. He can't even get into open space anymore. And that, again, goes part of the fact that it's not just KJ Jefferson. The offensive line's got to play better. Period. That's not helping the fact that you can't run the ball, is that you're not getting much push up front, and you can't even get RJ Harvey in the open field. You think, I can keep going. You think Randy Pittman's having much fun out there? I don't know. And we've talked about him as one of those guys where in the offseason, that's a larger discussion for another day, but it's worth just saying, I don't know if Randy Pittman's going to be on this team next year, because there's a lot of talent there that's just not getting maximized here at UCF. And if it continues to go this way, I have to think he's going to be a candidate to hit that portal and go somewhere else. And who's going to sit here and blame the dude? Not me. I don't think you are either. That's the thing. And then also, the whole Kingdom NIL situation and what it is, if you continue to go down this route and put out these performances after all the big game that was talked in the offseason, it gets a little harder to keep going back to donors and be like, hey, I know our on-field product sucks, but hey, make sure you keep donating. Make sure that check comes through monthly, that stuff washes up a little bit. So this is a very pivotal time for UCF right now. I'm trying to be as measured as I can in my comments, because trust me, earlier in the week when we were sort of talking this out, I probably was not that measured in my comments. And I tried to settle down a little bit and look at this from a more practical standpoint. But the fact of the matter is that UCF, in a more broader conversation here, UCF has zero passing offense. They all of a sudden cannot run the ball. The offensive line is getting bullied up front. The defensive line can't get sacks. And the secondary at times is a mess. They don't do anything well. They do nothing well, actually. And that's the reality that we are living in right now. So I don't think we're being ultra doom and gloom. I think we're just calling it like it is. If there were great things to talk about with this football team, I would see it on the field on Saturdays, but we're not.
No, and I think that's a good way to put it. We'll see. There's 7 games left. A lot can be changed. A lot can become better. They're 3-2. You're 1-1 in conference play. You have everything to play for. And like I said, you've got some big-time games on the schedule. You've got a ranked opponent in Iowa State going on the road to Ames.
Yep.
You're going to have a home-ranked opponent against BYU, most likely a home-ranked opponent against Utah. Maybe, I don't know if Arizona would, but Arizona's a big-time game. They're kind of turning it on as of late. Arizona State is going to be a tough road game. So you've got ways to change the mindset of these fans. You do. You really do. And the team has bright spots here and there. But right now, it's all bad. And it's not looking like it's going to get any better unless you make a change. Unless you change what you're doing.
And by the way, to the Fire Gus crew that's out there, and they're loud and they're vocal, and I get it. UCF, even if they wanted to, and I don't think they do, but even if they wanted to, I don't think they're in a position financially to shell out the amount of money that it would pay to get Gus Malzahn out of here, and then subsequently bring in a head coach that you believe is going to be an upgrade. Like, I don't think that. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that situation exists right now.
No, the buyout's ridiculously high. So no, Gus Malzahn will not be fired for at least another year. And again, I'm still in the not Gus fire. Maybe if you don't like that I'm in the not fire Gus boat and you want to unsubscribe, I completely understand it. I get that it's maybe not a popular take right now. I think we'll see where this year goes. If this year ends the way that it's looking like it's going to end, then yeah, you're going to hear for the 9 months after the season, probably on this show, how much Gus Malzahn probably needs to be fired. But
and there's also people out there that are talking about, Terry Mohajir and his job, and
little do they know South Carolina's like, everybody wants South Carolina to take Terry, and it's like, again, you don't want to go through another AD.
I don't know, and I know people are bringing up, well, it's not just football, baseball has gotten worse, and
he made a great hire with baseball.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we're that's going to remain to be seen if that continues to be a good hire. But on the early returns are yes. But people have been saying that baseball's gotten worse, and all the other sports have gotten worse. They haven't won this and they haven't won that. Like, I get it. Everybody is doom and gloom on everything in the UCF athletic department right now. Yeah, but I don't think Terry Mohajir's he's not going anywhere. So
no, and I like Terry Mohajir as the AD.
I truly believe Terry Mohajir does everything in his power to make UCF as good as it can be too. I don't think he's just out there dogging it in. I don't think he's giving lip service and doing something different. Like, I truly believe he cares about the university and its well-being and the athletics programs and trying to make it the best it can be. I don't think that's an issue here.
No, and that's also the thing. He's getting our facilities updated. You'll have updated facilities within the next 2 years, which, no offense to Danny White. Without Danny White, UCF is nowhere near, this program is nowhere near it is right now. But Danny White could not get facilities off the ground. Now, granted, that was because of funding. That was because of a lot of outside source. But Terry Mohajir got the TDT passed, which nobody thought that would get passed, given that we're a university. All that stuff's going to be built in 2 years. He's increased budgets for a lot of the school or a lot of the teams on campus, like basketball. Basketball is making double what they were making, and that's because Terry Mohajir said we need to increase the revenue for basketball. So, listen, this is football. I don't want to get into AD and all that, but if you're a fire Gus and that's what your stance is, I totally respect it and understand where you're coming from. Let's not get on the AD. Let's not get on him. Until let's also be realistic of what UCF is as an in general athletics program, but especially football. Like, Florida's 3-2 right now, okay, and they want to fire everybody, okay. And by the way, they should feel that way because they're Florida, and they have years and years of history and elite play at this level on you. Like, their standards are going to be higher, and everything that Florida State deals with and the stuff that Miami has dealt with for the last 2 decades. And there's so many other examples, like their expectations and the level of patience that it takes to be a fan of those teams and a donor with those teams and a booster is a little bit different, I think, than what UCF is. But I think what's happening here is the success that UCF had in the American Conference
and everything they did in the 2010s, everyone thinks that it's just like going to be this linear, continual, just riding a wave of success. And now that, like I said, it's teetered off a bit, everybody is calling it unacceptable and all this stuff. Now, again, the on-field play, I think, is unacceptable given what you have at your disposal. I'm not trying to confuse that, but I'm just saying the general direction of everything, where everything is going right now, like, you know, maybe expectations need to be altered a little bit for what you're expecting out of a program that just joined the Power Four. And by the way, I'm going to take some blame in that too. Like, I'm sure we're guilty of it as well. We all probably are guilty. We just have to adjust our expectations clearly at this moment for where this team is and where they're headed.
Best way to end it and to get into Cincinnati is, and I know most people probably won't like to hear this, wait until the end of the season. See what happens this season. If it continues this way, then yeah, we have every right to talk about how badly the program is. Let's see what happens. Because if UCF wins all these big-time games, I'm sure a lot of people's minds are going to shift very quickly. So that's all I'm going to say. I think 36 minutes on that topic is more than enough for right now. Because, yeah, it could get really bad really quick. And then it's going to be doom and gloom every single week on the spot. But Nick, let's go talk Cincinnati really quick. I don't want to spend too much time on Cincinnati. We'll talk about, you know, some key players and kind of what they like to do. But this is a tough game. We talked about it heading into this week and even last week, how Cincinnati, a lot of people picked them in the bottom half of the Big 12. And granted, I do think there are some big holes on the team. I think they're not a perfect team, but they play really tough. They play hard. A lot of people thought Scott Satterfield was going to get potentially fired after just 1 year, came in this year saying he's on a short leash. He's come out and put a team together. And listen, I credit Cincinnati Bearcat fans. They said that Cincinnati got rid of some top players, but they were, I guess, bad locker room guys. And though we haven't heard that about Deshaun Pace, we've only heard great things about him and Miles Montgomery and stuff. It seems like
threats.
Yeah, clearly. It seems like they got rid of everybody they needed to get rid of and brought in guys that fit Scott Satterfield's kind of system or aura, if you will. And they're playing really hard this year. So kind of what have you seen from Cincinnati so far? They're 3-2, just like UCF, but they've had a lot more tests than UCF has early in the year.
Yeah, to me, the biggest thing is the offensive explosion and the offensive jump from year 1 to year 2 in the Big 12. The stats will tell you that these are the two best offenses in the Big 12 right now. I'm just, the UCF does not have a top 2 offense.
That's why somebody commented like, "Oh, the eye test doesn't do."
No, the eye test for me, the eye test for me is everything. I try to throw numbers in there to add context to thing, but in general, I like to go off the eye test, and the eye test tells me everything I need to know. UCF is not the number 1 offense in the Big 12, and you're fooling yourself. And Gus keeps bringing that up too, by the way, and it's like getting on my nerves because this is not the case. Whereas the Cincinnati offense, the numbers back up what I see on the field, that they are a damn good offense and maybe the best in the Big 12 right now. And it starts at the quarterback position with Brendan Sorsby coming in from Indiana. He's been a revelation. I mean, you talk about quarterback upgrade. I mean, one of the more underrated quarterback upgrades in the country is going from Emory Jones to Brendan Sorsby right now. Like, he's been balling. And he's obviously got a really good receiving core that he's throwing to, which is headlined by Xavier Henderson, who was the former Florida transfer. He's on pace, I think, to maybe push for 1,000 yards this season. So
I think easily.
Yeah, easily. He's been fantastic. Joe Royer, the tight end, replacing Josh Wiley, who's now in the NFL, I believe, with the Tennessee Titans. He's done a good job for them too. He's only been sacked 7 times through 5 games, so they're doing a good job of keeping him upright. And they can run the ball too. We know that they gave us Miles Montgomery, who we're missing dearly right now, hoping that his recovery is going well, obviously. But Corey Kiner,
did post a little tweet. I have not heard anything, but he did post a little Batman signal on Twitter a couple days ago. So I'm not going to say he plays or doesn't play, but I found that to be very interesting. But
yeah, maybe he's closer than we think. But no, I was just going to say, like, really good running back duo. We obviously are really familiar with Corey Kiner, and that's held together too. I think the Big 12 has a lot of talented running backs, and maybe he flies a little bit under the radar, I think, but he's still really, really good. And Evan Pryor as well, when he's gotten in there, he's explosive. 65-yard for long this year, and he's got 3 touchdowns as well. So 2 good backs, some good options in the passing game. And Sorsby, like I said, has been a big upgrade over Emory Jones, and you're seeing the offense is clearly not the problem on this football team. They can put up points, and they've proven to do that against anybody they've played.
Yeah, starting, I mean, you mentioned him, Brennan Sorsby. I said I didn't expect much out of him. I thought he was going to be kind of one of the worst quarterbacks in the Big 12. I didn't see what the hype was. Scott Satterfield has he fits in that system. I mean, he can sling the ball. Again, another quarterback that UCF really needs to worry about when it comes to just efficient passing offense. I think he's thrown 1 interception this year. Doesn't turn the ball over. UCF has just every single week had to play a quarterback that's just highly efficient at throwing the football. And I think we go into, like we talked about last year and how the defense played against passing quarterbacks. And now you're looking at it this year and you're way more nervous about it. And Sorsby, what makes me nervous about Cincinnati, and we can talk about it a little bit more, but Cincinnati can do both. They can pass and they can run the football. And you didn't feel like Florida was that good at running the football. You felt that Graham Mertz could really beat you throwing, but maybe UCF, if they just stop the run, they can maybe stop the bleeding a little. I think this is a recipe for disaster right now for this UCF team. I think the disadvantage they're going to have at, okay, do we rush 4? Lee Hunter said that he feels confident rushing 4. I don't know how you can feel confident rushing 4 after the first 5 games that you've played. Do you load the box and make sure Kiner doesn't beat you? He beat you last year. I mean, I just looked at this. I knew he beat us pretty bad last year, but 19 carries for 114 yards last year for Corey Kiner. And they had 2 100-yard rushers. Ryan Montgomery had 113 yards against us last year. Now, again, not the most shocking thing. We couldn't stop the run at all last year. But you mentioned they had Emory Jones. So now with a guy that can actually throw, and Emory Jones didn't even have a bad game against us. I mean, he threw for 217 yards last year on 16 of 22. So, I mean, when you're talking about the way this defense is playing and the way that the Cincinnati offense is playing, it's another one of those weeks where you look at it and you're like, this is a disadvantage for the UCF defense. And can they make enough plays to give the ball to the offense? It's the same story every week, Nick. It's the same story. You've got a really explosive offense. It reminds me a lot. I'm not going to say they're like Colorado, because Colorado has way better skill position players. No disrespect to Cincinnati. But I think the issue is you're playing another high-powered offense, and we don't have any confidence that they're going to be able to stop them at all. And Scott Satterfield knows, again, we talked about last year, he's played Gus a lot. Gus has only beat him 1 time, which was last year, and he only won by 10.
by the skin of their teeth.
So, yeah.
I mean, how can you have confidence like in anything you've seen? I mean, this is 3 games in a row now where, and again, I give the UCF defense credit for pitching a shutout in the second half. I just am pointing out, and a lot of people on the Florida side of things have said this too, it feels like Billy Napier might have taken his foot off the gas. I thought that, I mean, I think that checks out. Would you agree with that? It seemed like they took their foot off the gas a little bit.
Yeah, why did they need to keep their foot on the gas? UCF on the first play out of halftime ran a 9-minute drive and put up a field goal. Like, all Florida was doing was just trying to milk the clock. So the score looks good because Florida really just stopped trying. But credit to the UCF team. Yeah, I give them credit for that. And again, the standards are not high, so I'm going to give them credit for that. But you look at it, Graham Mertz and DJ Lagway combined had 4 incompletions in that football game, I believe. Shadur Sanders had 7 incompletions, never had more than 2 in a row against UCF. And then going back against in the TCU game when they faced Josh Hoover, threw 52 times, but he completed 35 of those for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns. Like, it's been just like target practice, essentially, for passing offenses at this moment against this UCF defense. And there's a lot of reasons for that, clearly. And and I think a big part of it is there's no synergy with the pass rush and the secondary. Like, both those things have got to be conjoined together. And right now, they're operating on completely different levels playing field right now. Because
UCF is still sitting here today with what, they get 4 sacks now? Are we up to 4 sacks in 5 games? Or
no, I think I still think we're at 3 because Gus declined the penalty when we got a sack. So
okay, so we're sitting at 3 sacks and
except I forgot what we did. But
so we're sitting at 3 sacks in 5 games. Even when they send blitzes, they're not getting home. And as Gus said this week at his presser, if you send a blitz, you better get home. And it's not happening, and so it's putting more wear and tear on your defense. You still got guys that are running just wide open over and over. Even when you saw in that Florida game when Graham Mertz had to escape the pocket and try to make something happen downfield, they were available to him. And DK, basically they could have thrown a DK every play. They had no answer. The only thing I'm looking for here is, again, if Chasen Johnson needs to start in this football game. No ands, ifs, buts about it. Chasen Johnson has to play. Like, I know a lot of people are calling for like a youth movement right now. And as I said after the game, I don't think they're going to go full youth movement, but I think it's probably time to start sprinkling some of those guys in because it couldn't be any worse. It quite frankly just could not be any worse. And Chasen Johnson, on a bad night overall for this program, was a shining spot, give you something to look forward to. And as you continue to face some of these offenses that love to throw the ball, I think he needs to be in there. So, but overall, to answer your question, I know that was a long way of answering it. It's not a good matchup. It's just not a good matchup.
No, I think you need to see more Chasen Johnson, and I think you need to see Isaiah Nixon a lot more. Usually when Isaiah Nixon is in the game, something good kind of happens, and I just don't think we're seeing enough of him. So I think, yeah, I get the youth movement talks. I think you need to, and I said this on the postgame pod, you don't just throw the young guys in there to throw the young guys in there. It's not like UCF is 0-5, and you just see what you got. If it gets off the rails here, and it could, then yeah, you need to give the young guys a shot and see what you have for the years coming up. But right now, you don't make that move until your season is, unless these guys are just better. Like if Chasen Johnson is better than a BJ Adams or Mac McWilliams, okay, then you start him. But if you don't feel like he's better and he makes a couple mistakes, then okay. But he proved that he should get playing time. Isaiah Nixon has proved, in my opinion, he's proved that he should get a lot more reps over Malachi Lawrence with how he's played. So
yeah,
I think
or
those
even
are the 2 names on the defense.
Yeah, or even, I mean, nobody's really played well. Let's get that out of the way. But I know that Nigel Leak has actually gotten to the quarterback, maybe.
He's the only one that gets to the quarterback.
Yeah, but I think the overall body of work on Nigel Leak is that he tends to disappear. Like, at least there's times where I feel like Malachi is getting more pressure, at least it seems, and I think some of the numbers have sort of backed that up. Like, I think Nigel Leak has gone invisible at times, but again, when you have 3 sacks in 5 games, I think everybody could stand to rotate a little bit, to be honest with you.
No, for sure. Listen, if UCF wants to win the game, they're going to need to do what they did last week. They're going to have to get about 3 or 4 stops.
Well, they're going to have to tackle. Tackling is the biggest fundamental out there, and UCF just has not done well at that for 2 weeks.
No, obviously not. But if we're talking the easiest way to describe it, if UCF can get 3 or 4 stops in the entire game, and somehow this offense kind of turns it on, then you got a shot. Let's see. We'll talk about the Cincinnati defense very quickly and how it kind of relates to the UCF offense. Listen, this defense is kind of slept on. Texas Tech kind of had their way with them. Cincinnati had their bye week last week, so they didn't play. But the last game was at Texas Tech, and they put up 41, but they allowed 44. But besides that, they kind of have been a pretty stout defense. Obviously, Dante Corleone going to be, in my opinion, a first couple round NFL player. He's really, really good. A lot of guys with double-digit tackles, Nick. A lot of guys. I mean, you go down the list. We don't need to name them all. There's a bunch. I mean, they've got a bunch of guys that make tackles. They're a fundamentally sound defense. They get sacks. I mean, they've got 10 on the year, so much different than our merely 3. And they get pressure. So that's why I personally don't think KJ makes it past halftime. I think this is going to be a rough game for KJ. I think Cincinnati, if you just look at the stats from the last year, and again, it doesn't matter, but you're playing Scott Satterfield. Cincinnati ran for more than UCF did. And UCF ran 13 times with John Rice for 53 yards. So they really locked in on John Rice. Now, some of those, I asked the question to Gus. They're not all designed. Some of them, it's a read thing. If KJ runs the football in this game, UCF is screwed. Straight up. Because I think Cincinnati is going to be ready for it, just like Colorado and Florida was. He has no speed. And I think if this offense really has a shot, you have to sit KJ and you have to put Jakari or EJ in. I don't care either or. If you want to put the 17-year-old in and see what he's got, go right ahead. I would prefer Jakari just because I think we all assume he's your starter next year, and he's very fast. Maybe he doesn't throw it. We haven't seen him throw it efficiently, and we don't know if he can. We only saw him throw it maybe 4 or 5 times. But I think this offense can quickly change if you get a guy in like Jakari Brown, who is speedy, much like John Rice, and maybe has throwing ability. But that's my 2 cents. What do you think about this offense to defense matchup?
It's a lot of ifs, Sean.
It's a lot of ifs, but we're dealing with a lot of ifs for the rest of the year, Nick.
It's a lot of ifs. The Cincinnati defense, I know the numbers don't necessarily look good on paper. For what it's worth, they've only allowed 21 points per game, but what's helping that is the fact that they completely shut out Houston. And then Houston, of course, goes and beats TCU. Because the Big 12 is just the chaos conference. It really is. Like the Big 12 is. Don't even get me started. I don't even know if the Big 12 is going to get the 4 seed anymore in the playoff. Like I genuinely am like losing hope in that. I think Boise might get it, but that's a discussion for another day. Chaos conference. Cincinnati's a part of that. Like you said, they've done a pretty okay job at getting to the quarterback, and Eric Phillips has been the guy. He's got 4 sacks for them through these first 5 games. Corleone the numbers aren't exactly popping off at the moment, but I think at any given time, that he can take over a game.
He's a factor. He's just ginormous.
He's ginormous. And listen, I got to know who's playing center for UCF in this football game. I got to know who's playing center. I know Caden Kittler seemed like, Gus said he, was banged up and he tried to battle through it and eventually had to come out. Cameron Kinney got in there. Probably some mixed results, if we're being completely honest. I know Gus said there were some issues with some snaps and maybe some timing things, which is going to happen for a young guy getting his first taste of college football in front of 93,000 people. But that's going to be the big matchup. Is if it is Cameron Kinney, it's like, hello, you went from having to face Desmond Watson, Big Des, who's like 420 pounds and probably rising. I'm not even sure. And now it's Dante Corleone, who obviously is much more athletic than Desmond and a much better player. So not going to be an easy task whatsoever. I'm sure Cincinnati is thinking the same thing that Florida was thinking and the same thing that Colorado was thinking. Hey, let's just stop the run. Let's do everything we can. Let's sell out for the run and let's force UCF to beat us. And I think we've already seen how that image plays out. So,
yeah, and UCF didn't throw the ball well at all last year against Cincinnati. John Rice went 13 of 23 for 165, and 93 of those yards came with Javon Baker. So 93 came from Javon and 45.
Hey, Javon Baker, is not getting on the field at all at over in New England. So if we want to change the rules, I'd be glad to have him back, Sean. I'll take him away from your Pats because he's not doing anything.
The NCAA makes new rules every day, so it'd be
no kidding.
Thing. UCF could use them. All right, yeah. Who knows how this game's going to go? I think I have a pretty good idea, though. I'm going to let you go first because I went first last week. A lot of doom and gloom, but are you going to pick the Bearcats to win, or are we picking the Knights to kind of turn it around this week?
I'm not picking UCF to win. I want them. They need to show me. They need to show me. They need to show me. I can't pick them today in this game.
You're pulling the John Green card. I was smart last week. I said they need to show me, and
yeah, they got to show me. Like I said, they just are not coming into this game doing anything well. They're so disjointed offensively and in so many other facets of their game. It's a rivalry one. You hope that they're up for this, but they weren't up for Florida, so that's still concerning. I have no idea how in the world UCF is favored in this football game. Vegas, I don't know what you're looking at. I do not know what you're looking at, but I'm going to ignore the lines. I think Cincinnati wins this game 31-21. I have egg on my face every time I project this UCF offense to have it to play in a shootout, and they don't do it. So I'm going to go Cincinnati 31 because I think that they should have a lot of success moving the football if it's more the same old. And UCF, I have them scoring 21 because that's sort of where they've lived at over the last couple weeks. So, or at least against Colorado, they lived right around there, and they couldn't even get there in Florida. So they're going to have to show me a lot, Sean. So 31-21 Cincinnati.
Yeah, we were pretty close. I'm saying 35-21 Cincinnati.
Oh, wow.
I don't. Oof. Listen. I said it last week. I gave Florida a 3-point win, and I said UCF needs to show me something, and they showed me absolutely nothing. Now, this could, again, I have faith from everything I've heard about Ja'Carri Brown, like with people that have heard good things. I think he could be the guy. So that could easily change. If Ja'Carri gets in the game, I think it actually works in UCF's favor with the way that he plays. Because, again, the way that Gus is calling this offense, I think it fits Ja'Carri way more than it fits KJ. So I think if he makes that move, I actually really like it. As of right now, I have absolutely no trust in this offense to be as efficient as we need to be. I think the defense will get a couple stops, but again, a couple stops is still averaging 30-something points. Florida could have put 30 if they wanted to. So, yeah, I'm going to say a 2-touchdown win for the Bearcats at home. And I don't know how many people are going to show up. Like, we do have a hurricane. Like, I don't know how bad the hurricane's going to be. We don't even know if this game's going to happen. I think it will.
Right.
But how many people are going to want to go to the football game on Saturday? I have no idea. So the home crowd could play a role, but yeah, I'm saying 2-touchdown win. And
by the way, I did want to just real quick, because we were talking so much about Corleone, I did want to mention he did have blood clots. He went through that in the off season, so he came back for the Pitt game, I believe it was. So I had mentioned that like his numbers were a little, maybe a little down by his standards. So obviously he was working his way from there back, and actually, which I did not mention against Texas Tech, 13 tackles, 2 for loss, 1 sack, and 4 quarterback hurries. So he just put together his best performance by far. And now he's probably, he can't wait probably to go up against this UCF defensive line.
Wait, he had 13 tackles against just them?
Mm-hmm.
He has 13 tackles on the year, so are we sure he played in every game?
Am I reading a typo?
I mean, yeah, you are. He had four tackles against Texas Tech. You read his season stats.
I read his season stats. My bad. But he did
for a second, I got nervous. I'm like, let me change my score prediction if that's what he did against Texas Tech.
That's on me. That's on me. That's on me. I wrote that completely wrong in my notes.
It's okay.
I wrote that wrong in my notes. He had 4 tackles, a tackle for loss, and a hurry against Texas Tech, and he finished with a 90 overall grade according to Pro Football Focus, which earned him a spot on their team of the week. So the point stands, but he did not have 13 tackles against Texas Tech. So that's on me. I wrote my notes wrong, but continue.
He's really good.
He's really good.
He's really good. All right, guys, what do you guys think? Hey, listen, I have no confidence. But listen, I've been surprised before. We had no confidence going into the Oklahoma State game last year, and look what happened. So I don't want to pick UCF's rival in the Big 12 to win a game, but that's kind of how it's looking. Nick, any final thoughts? Long episode. Got a lot in. Very therapeutic for us. This is our therapy every week. But, give your final thoughts for this one.
Yeah, it's I'm trying to find positives here. It's a college football Saturday, and we saw that this past weekend anything can happen in college football. If Vanderbilt can beat Alabama and all those things, you like to think that UCF can beat Cincinnati. So anything crazy can happen. And like as we said to start the show, I guess we'll end it like this. Again, don't know when you're posting this, either Wednesday or Thursday. But again, hoping everybody makes it out okay from this storm and stay safe, that the damage is as minimal as it possibly can be. And hopefully we do have this game to play. But obviously that's not the most important thing. But if it does happen, obviously I'll see you guys in Orlando this weekend.
Yeah, everybody stay safe. Thank you so much for tuning in. And hopefully we took your mind off of everything going on around you just for an hour. Couple long pods over the last couple weeks with a lot.
It's a lot to say.
Yeah, there is. All right, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, please like, subscribe, comment, share. Do all that you do. We greatly appreciate it. We will be doing, if the game is being played, we'll be doing our pregame and postgame live shows live from the Bounce House, so make sure you tune into that. The pregame show will be at 2 p.m., and the postgame show will be about 20-30 minutes after the game is over, so make sure you subscribe and turn on your post notifications for that. All right, everybody, this has been Charge On, presented by Bet Online. We will see you after the game.